I'm delighted to introduce to you someone who is a force to be reckoned with on the mummy blogging scene. She shares family stories, recipes, lifestyle tips on her super successful blog, Honest Mom, and has written a best-selling book too, Mum Boss. She is so super busy, so I'm so delighted that she's joined us here today. Vicky Broadbent, it's so lovely to see you.
Hello, Sam. It's lovely to see you.
As I said in the intro, you are so successful with the kind of your blog and you've written a book. Let's go back to the beginning in terms of kind of how Honest Mum started and how you've built up this kind of community of women who support each other.
I set up Honest Mum accidentally in a way because I was on maternity leave from being a director. I'd worked quite a lot for Bob Geldof's company. I directed social documentaries, made some short films that done like won awards all over the world, and I'd kind of travelled all over the world as a director. And but I knew that I wanted a baby. I was told that I had polycystic ovaries, so my fertility, wasn't guaranteed. I was told that if I wanted a baby, I should really consider it before I was 30. And obviously that's no age as a director, and particularly as a female director. I think at the time I was like one of just 4% of female directors. So you can imagine you really are working in a man's world. And I know you know about all of this, Sam, because you've grown up in this industry. So we had little Oliver and I had quite a traumatic birth. And at that time, it was really the advent of blogging, 2010. In fact, people didn't even know what blogging was. If you told anyone, they'd just be like, what? So American bloggers, though, had there were some women that were super successful at it. Now, I never started it as a career. I never thought this was a career that was going to happen for me. I just set it up because a friend of mine who was also a filmmaker, Aman Kaitapi, who's still a very good friend of mine, when I'd ring her and say to her, this is what life's like now as a new mum and stuff, she was like, you've got to blog this. And I was like, really? And she said, look, there's loads of American women doing this. Have a read. So I did some research. I set up a blog, and honestly, it kind of, just grew into its own kind of, I don't know, people call it a personal brand. I don't know, like a monster. I don't know what to call it. Depends on the day. But no, it's been really lovely. And I think as my career's evolved, it's been so nice to hopefully share my work and encourage other women. And obviously Mum Boss is my handbook to how to create a digital brand.
Yeah, because that's the thing, isn't it? Being a mom, I know I went through it sort of almost 11 years now. 11 years ago, I, fell pregnant, and then you can work, you continue working while you're pregnant. You're like, yeah, I can do this. And then you have this little thing that's like, you're not going anywhere. I need you. And you're like, hang on a minute, I need to be on a red carpet, or I need to be behind a camera, or it's just life-changing. You lose your identity because you're not that person that's working and running around. And so what you've done, which is very clever, is kind of mix the two, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get back to directing one day. I wrote the first draft of a feature screenplay during the second lockdown or first lockdown, I can't remember, they all sort of, and I would love to at some point have a bit more time to properly develop that, and for that to become a movie one day that I would direct, because that is the big dream. I'm so grateful for the opportunities I've had. This was a road that I worked really hard on as a filmmaker that sort of pivoted into something else that was just really fulfilling. And you're right, you lose that identity. I went from leading, hundreds on set to suddenly just me and a baby with no structure. Maybe that was my fault as a new mum, but I was the first of my friends to have a baby. Very little structure. I'd lost all my confidence. I was kind of existing in a body I didn't recognise as my own, a mind I didn't recognise my own. And I think that huge shift, particularly with your first baby, is, it's kind of like, it feels quite chaotic in many ways. And you don't know how you'll ever find your way back to who you were.
And I guess when you are mixing kind of motherhood with work, which is what you do, there's a danger of working too much. You've got your kids and you are blogging about being a mom. So you feel like you have to be always writing, always filming. How do you separate that? So you have your family time and you have your privacy, and then you do share what you want to share.
Yeah, I think so. At the beginning, I think it was very balanced. I think, it felt kind of was the start of my career, but I felt it was very exciting because we were at the advent of blogging, and suddenly myself and the sort of first mummy bloggers were really in demand. But it was, we sort of started on quite a powerful footing, really, because we could be quite cheesy. I remember thinking, what is the catch here? Because it felt like a bucket of gold at the end of the rainbow. I was like, I can be a mum, I don't have to leave my house, my baby's part of my platform, like I'm getting paid a decent fee, like what's the catch? And it sort of grew. And then there were a few years where it was a bit too much. It was a bit too intense. The juggle wasn't there. I had unwell relatives. I felt that I was being spread very, very thinly. And I almost felt, I don't know if you ever get this, but the freelance fear. So whenever you're freelance, you're busy and you're like, yeah, I'm busy, but you're still worried the quiet time is going to come. And it doesn't matter how consistently busy you are for however many years, that fear never goes. And there was a period where I think I just didn't know what, I was saying yes to too many things. And actually the last, I would say 3 years, I've gotten the balance back.
Well, you are going to need that balance even more now, because huge congratulations. I'm so excited to sort of announce it. You're pregnant again. Yeah, congratulations.
I am. I'm like nearly 16 weeks now, so it feels very real and very tiring. So yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, it's really lovely. And I think, it's come at such a lovely time in my career that I can pick and choose projects. And believe me, I don't say this with any kind of ego or that it was easy. I built something over many years to get to this point. It really does take time to get to a point where you're like, oh, actually, I can just be very flexible. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm a bit nervous. I need tips from you, Sam. You've done it all again a year ago.
We are both in the Geriatric Mums Club, and it's it's a really cool club to be in. It's very cool.
I know, it sounds good. Although whenever I speak to like consultants or anything, they're like, Vicky, you're not old. Like, we don't consider you old. Like, you're fine. So I think that's changed as well. And to be honest, all my friends that had children in their late 30s and early 40s, I have to say, are much better mums than I was in my late 20s, because they're just so much more chill. They've got life experience, a bit like us now. Like, I definitely feel that my second child got the best version of me, because I was just a lot more relaxed. And, I remember thinking I wish I had a magnifying glass so I could check like Oliver's breathing, like, you just are so worried as a first time mum. So I'm hoping I'm going to be practically horizontal by the time this baby comes along in the winter.
You'll be chilled, no doubt. So you always seem really confident whenever I speak to you, whenever I see your stuff online. Could you perhaps give us some tips, people that are listening, watching this, tips on confidence? Is it fake it till you make it, or are there certain things that you need to do if your confidence dips?
Yeah, I mean, I don't always feel confident at all. In fact, over this period, I've wondered if I'm actually more of an introvert than I thought I was. Maybe, is it an extroverted introvert? I don't know the term. But just because I am someone who needs quiet time and needs time on my own as well. I think maybe culturally I've grown up, my family are Greek Cypriot, the women are very, very strong. The men are strong as well, but they're kind of quite more quiet than men in my family. So I think I've grown up with blueprints of very strong women around me, and it's almost becomes your default. You're not always going to feel great. My body's changing very rapidly. This is my 4th pregnancy. I sadly had a miscarriage last year. So, I'm thinking, gosh, this doesn't fit anymore. And it's fine. Like, I'm not always going to feel super confident, and that's okay. It's kind of accepting the present. I think tips for other people would be, these are the things that have really helped me. Meditation apps. So I love an app called Insight Timer, which is free. I do that a lot. I really love doing like yoga and Pilates on Zoom. There are some great resources out there that don't cost a lot, that allow you to kind of access. And I think it's often we think we're quite reactive, aren't we? So we don't build up the armour in time for when you feel rubbish. And I'm guilty of that lots because we're so busy, aren't we? And we're doing everything for everyone. But I found that if I kind of keep going with like almost like an emotional first aid kit that just is consistent, then when you do face the knocks, which are inevitable for everybody, you are that bit tougher because you've been consistently doing your deep breathing, or I think I've been quite, I keep a very small circle. I was the sort of person that wanted to be best friends with everybody. And then I think definitely over the past, particularly the last few years, I've realised, it's really important to just keep a very tight, small circle and not try and be, friends with everyone, because not everybody's, wants the best for you. And I think that's been a really important lesson as well, just to surround yourself with people that are honest with you, but really want you to do well and are happy for you. And because that makes a huge difference to your life, because you end up wasting so much energy on being triggered by this or that, and I think it's really important to just prioritize what makes you happy. As women, we're quite scared of boundaries and saying no and upsetting people because that's been put upon us. But I think this year therapy's been amazing for me. I've had recently about 2.5 years of consistent therapy, which was amazing. I had a big operation on my thyroid 2 years ago, and I saw someone to help with that because the recovery was quite intense. I was really lucky that it was benign, but it was quite intense. And then actually, although I had a bit of health anxiety, what was really great with therapy was kind of working on boundaries and sort of self-worth and stuff. So I think if people do have access to therapy or can invest in it, rather than say, buy fewer dresses or shoes that year and just go, I'm gonna put some money aside for me, I think it's a game changer actually in the way that you are, the way that you behave, the way that you kind of see life. So those are my tips.
That's great, actually. Yeah, I've kind of never really had therapy, but I do see how important it is to kind of just speak to someone who doesn't know you, isn't going to judge you, isn't then going to go and gossip to another friend or whatever. It's just this separate person. And I've always kind of thought, oh yeah, maybe I should treat myself to that, because it is a treat, obviously, as you said.
I was very lucky. It came through my husband's health insurance with work. But prior to that, I'd spent money on it. But I felt that it's just so useful because it allows you you don't spend, depending on what therapy you have, but if you have CBT or talking therapies, it allows you don't dwell on the past a lot, but it allows you to pinpoint why you might be triggered in certain areas based on your childhood. But then it really gives you the tools to respond and not react to things, to kind of make allowances more for people. Maybe you might it changes your perspective. And I think in many ways it's changed me as a parent as well, because you're constantly trying to look a bit 360 on things, a bit kind of bird's eye view on things, and also very good with anxiety and definitely when I sort of suffered the miscarriage, I remember just, straight away that therapy it just felt like such a gift to kind of help me work through such a dark time. But I don't think therapy should just be there as a response to a dark time. I think anyone can find it so beneficial. And I'm hoping with children in schools, and as we move to more of a pastoral kind of culture and mental health is being respected as it should be alongside physical health, that therapy through play becomes more commonplace in schools. Children feel that they can talk more, because when we grew up, therapy was seen as such a foreign kind of thing, wasn't it, to do?
It was seen, I guess, as you have had to have had something really traumatic had happened to you, and then you need to go to therapy to kind of also sort yourself out. You've got like a screw loose, whereas therapy very much is just talking to someone and working through things, and actually then being able to carry on in life with a bit of a clean slate, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I think even when I talk to my children and things, they have such a different response. and that's wonderful. You know, they really respect mental health and looking after themselves, and you know, doing yoga and things, and a lot of that just gives us a lot of hope for the future, doesn't it? That they've got a different view, because if you bottle things up, then it becomes really, it sort of poisons everything. So I think even if you don't have a therapist, but you do sort of talk and you do meditation, and even, you know, on YouTube, there's so much you can access now. It's wonderful in that way. I was thinking if I had more time, I'd love to become a yoga teacher, but I'm like, no, I don't have time.
I think you're a bit busy at the moment.
But I'm one of those people that just wants to do everything. It's like, no, Vicky, calm down, you can't do everything.
You're running your own life, which is what we all want, isn't it? And you're doing so well. I just want you to keep up the good work and be sharing the stories,
well,
so we all don't feel...
I start a new business soon, which is quite exciting, which has been in development for about a year. So, and I will be, it's an educational business. So lots of videos to upskill mums and dads, but primarily mums, with digital skills. And I'm working with a global platform, Hotmart, and Jack Freud's my business partner, and you know, I'm really excited. It's all being filmed. It's all it's my new baby before the actual new baby. So we launch in a couple of months, and I kind of hope that, you know, we help loads of women, and because it's going out on a global scale, which is a bit scary but exciting. Hopefully it'll help lots of parents everywhere to just, with all the tools, with everything they need, to just go off and do what I'm doing, you know. So
that's amazing. You don't like to slow down, but that's brilliant. Keep up the good work. Vicky, I know I was about to say, I know you're so busy, but you know, scheduling time for yourself and work. Thank you so much for taking the time out.
Thanks, Sam. I've absolutely loved it.
Will you answer my perfect questions?
Yes, sure. My perfect night in would be watching a movie with the kids, or if they go to bed, probably watching Lupin on Netflix with Peter, and just slobbing out, basically. My perfect evening out would be girlfriends, a bit dressed up, you know, big earrings, great food, hopefully eating al fresco somewhere would be lovely, or date night with Peter. It's a gorgeous restaurant on the river in just on the bridge, Windsor and Eton Bridge, and it's just magical there, and we've been going for years. So a French restaurant, so I think that's always a nice date night. My perfect meal would actually be my mum and dad coming to cook for me, because they're amazing. My mum was a teacher, my dad was a businessman, and then when we were little they opened restaurants, lots of gorgeous restaurants, so they're phenomenal cooks. So I'd love to transport them over from Yorkshire and just cook for me and the family. So my perfect pamper would have to be Cliveden House Hotel, which is just dreamy. Best facials ever, massages, very lovely there, absolutely gorgeous. We've got a listed pool and it's round the corner, so I have to say I've had lots of magical, thanks to them, lots of magical experiences there.